Hello guys, my name is Zombie Vega and today we will be playing a game called Satisfactory. I will be giving you 5 tips for beginners. I've played this game for quite a few hundred hours, and in that time I've picked up a few things to do to help you out and hopefully save you some time and energy going forward. As you can see off there in the distance, that's my big factory, but what I've done is I've come out to this little spot here and we'll start off with just small little tips to help you out in the game. So off to tip number 1. Tip number 1, do not mine manually. As soon as you can and you start the game, you will need to mine. Now, these will be the resource nodes that you can mine. You can mine anywhere on these resource nodes by just holding E, and as you can see, as I'm mining, I'm picking up some iron ore. Now, this is quite slow, but you will need to do that in the start. But as soon as you can, you need to craft yourself some auto miners. Now, when you start off with, you can craft some of these portable miners. I will place a few of these portable miners into my inventory here, just to give you a small idea. So if you hold them in your hand and you place them down by left clicking, there they go. And he does it for you. I will do this with another one. Now you can place a lot of them down. So you have these little guys mining for you. They are still needed in the game later on as well. So do not ever forget about using these guys, especially if you're going out and looking for new resources as you're progressing through the different tiers within Satisfactory. As you can see, I can stand here and mine, but in the time that I've spoken to you guys, they've already started mining for me. And that's over 30 ore. And I am going to pick up these miners because that leaves us into the second part. The next part is, as soon as you've progressed through the tiers, to start off with a proper mining setup, because those guys just won't do. So at some stage you will unlock the miners. Miner MK1. I take this, and you will also need one of those portable miners to construct this. Now, as you can see, I can place this down like so, the green being the output. I cannot place one down here, although it looks like I should be. The reason why you can't place one down in this spot is because you still have this node to mine. As soon as you've mined that node, you will see there's another one. As soon as you've mined it away, you will be able to place something. So all you have to do is just manually mine these. This is the only time you need to manually mine, is to make sure that you've got all this gone, and that's it. That's all you need to do to put one of those down. So as soon as you can, manual mining is the one thing you should avoid completely. Do it as little as you can. Get these guys up. That also leads us into the next part. So tip number 2, invest in power first. Before you can do anything in this game, as you progress further, you need to invest in power. If you look at this, you will see it's got a big red nope on it. So it needs power. Now, when you start off with, you will start off with the most basic power, which is a biomass burner. You can place this one down. And as you can see, this is your initial power source. You need to put the fuel in here. It's got no connection, meaning there's nothing to pull anything from it. I will just put in some of these leaves in here to give it some power. And now I need to connect this to that. You can directly do that with, if you place it close enough with a power line, but do it with a power pole instead. This will give you a bit more freedom in a later stage. And to connect that, you need a power line. So we will connect this power line to the power pole and the power line. There we go. And we are connected, and you see it turned green. Now, the one thing you will notice is that as soon as you go into this, it will give you all these different stats, and it is dying because we need to give it more fuel. We will just give it a bit more of this. You'll also see that any input will be at the top here, so you don't have to wonder if something is down here. It will just give it to you at the top. So we'll just use some of the wood I had on me. You can see that I am using 5 megawatts of power, and I'm producing 30 megawatts of power. And if I go on to, I can do that exact same thing by clicking on the power pole, getting that info. But if I look here, I can actually see that this uses 5 megawatts of power. Now, if you were going to add quite a few more of these onto all these other resource nodes, you are going to start running out of power quite quickly, as each and every one added will just burn up your fuel a lot faster. As you can see, the efficiency is 17%, but as I'm starting to use more, this will go down faster. So power it uses or generates, the more you will need. So invest in more power than you need. Now, the one thing you can also do is if I place down another one, I don't have to take one of these for each one of my factory units that I built. I can just chain them together. So if I place another power pole down here and I connect it to this power, let's give it some fuel just for the interim. And you'll see that this now produces 30 megawatts. This now produces 30 megawatts. But I can just connect that source, this source, and now I've got one complete 60 watt for everything. So you can build your power units all together and just chain them up and make one big power grid. Now, separating the grid does seem easier at the start, but having all your power in one place really makes the game a lot easier in the long run. As you progress through the tiers and go to the oil and coal burning, you really need to start building these power units or power generation areas as one grid. That makes it much easier for you to troubleshoot or expand as needed. That leads us into the next part. Tip number 3. Don't craft things manually if you don't have to. We now have the basic resources that we just got, and if I go into this, I can start crafting iron ingots. Now, I've got all the resources there, and I can sit here and craft and craft and craft and craft. But that is not a wise decision, as I can automate everything in this game. Tip number 3 is just that. When you can, automate it. And I mean automate everything. For this, we're just going to build a simple setup. I will need a, where is that? My smelter. So I will need a smelter. Now, something else you will notice is you've got red and green. Red is always your input, green is always your output. Easy to see from any angle that you place it on. I can see exactly where my input and output is. So I'm just going to place this down here. And what I will do is I can take this and connect it to that. So now I am inputting this. I can now go and say copper my iron ingots, and I can place this into a storage. Now what this means is I can just go along and do whatever I want to, and when I come back, everything is done. Now this is the main part of the game which most people will get right. Let's just give this power. So that is it. You will start producing, and as you can see, I'm using my iron ore and I'm producing iron ingots, and I'm placing it into this storage. I'm doing nothing, my factory is doing it for me. This is the basics that the game is relying on, but to go further, as I said, is automate everything you can. We've got our bio burners there in the back. Now, I can already see that one at the back, that's got a red on it, meaning it is dead. Leaves aren't the best source of energy. You can start crafting biomass from leaves quite early on, but why stand and craft it when you can automate it? Place down a simple storage container here. I will place down a simple production line of a constructor here. And I will place down another storage container. We'll just use the big ones. Oop. And I place, nope, I can't. Let's just steal this one for a few seconds. We'll place down another storage container here. So it might seem very simple, but once you have some of these small little factories up, you will find yourself using them quite a bit. So let's quickly just go run and get some leaves, because I don't have any on me. Just collecting. Now you can see this is quickly getting, I've got 115 leaves on me, and I'm just grabbing them as I go along. So you will go out exploring as you start the game and just grabbing all of these leaves. As you come back from that lengthy little exploration, you've got two options. I can now either go and stand here and waste a few minutes doing manual labor, crafting it like this, or just going into here, this new factory that I've set up. I'm just going to take this and I say biomass from leaves. Let's just give this some power. And now I've got an input and an output. I can just come back from a nice little trip, put my leaves in there and go, okay, that's it. Go on my way. My factory will run and I don't have to do anything. I just stop by as soon as it's done and go grab more biomass, take it over to my power unit, and done. No more need for me to manually craft anything. You can expand this later on as well as you unlock more recipes through the tier. But the main thing is, if you're now coming back in again from a lengthy thing, you can just go, okay, place my leaves in here and it will automatically do it for you. You don't have to sit there and craft, and once you run out of power, you will quickly be able to just go and grab some, put it in there. In the early game, this really helps a lot when you are exploring and finding all the new resources and building your factory, as you will run out of power and hear the dreaded factory shutdown. But look at this. This is pretty much a mess. That leads us into tip number 4. Tip number 4, platforms. If you look at this thing that I've just built out here as a demonstration, and you look there in the distance, you'll see my big factory. But platforms, if you look at all this, this is pretty much a mess. I've got skew conveyor belts going all over the place. It just doesn't look right, and it's a mess to maintain. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to break all this down and show you exactly how nice it can look. As soon as you get to a certain tier and unlock foundations, I would recommend start using them immediately and start laying out your factory floors and building them at a height that you've got a nice big space to work on. So I've got quite a few unlocked. but when you start off with, you get the 3 different variations of heights. You can use this as you need to. You get your ramps as well to go up and down. We'll just be using this. What is nice is you will see that it just snaps on and just works. This is why getting concrete right at the start is probably one of the most important things for me, is you can start getting ready to make a lot of this. Building the factory floor before building anything else is going to save you a lot of frustration in the later game. Now, that same exact setup that we used for making that bioburner configuration, I am going to go and add my storage container. And as you can see, it snaps nicely. I can rotate it perfectly and I can snap it in perfectly in the middle and organize it nicely. This means that by doing this, I can actually make a nice and easy straight line. You also see that now it's easier to get these green lines in between that. That means that it is perfectly lined up. And I can now just go and add that into this. If I now take my power pole, you'll see my power pole fits nicely into this area here as well. Now compare this to what we had before. This is a lot cleaner. Everything is lined up. I can get and see everything perfectly versus what we had before, where I had snaking lines going all over the place. Trust me when I say foundations, use them as soon as you can and start planning out your factory. It will help you in the long run to really get around making a nice, proper functioning factory. But making a nice factory is one thing. You still need to get a proper balanced factory. Number 5, learn the maths of the game. What I mean by that is each part of your factory has an input or an output. Your resource nodes normally only has an output, but most of your factory has an input and output. If I look at this, this is my miner. It has an output of 30 per minute. And if I go over here to this smelter over here, it can take 30 per minute to produce 30 per minute. This is a perfectly balanced system. Now, just going over here, just to give you an idea, this should, if I configure this to, let's make it iron rods, you will see that it can produce 15 per minute. It uses 15 per minute and it can produce 15 per minute. So for each one of those, I can add 2 of these. But if I add another one of these, then the whole factory gets out of balance. And that is where I say, learn the maths and learn how to balance your system. I will get into proper balancing of conveyor belts in a later stage, but you will need more advanced tech for that for a beginner that you still need to unlock in the tiers. But just remember that if you're always waiting on something, it means that your factory is unbalanced. You always want to make sure that your output and input matches. So it doesn't help you building 3 of these constructors and only having one of those. You're always going to have one of these constructors waiting on parts, making your factory way more inefficient. By building another one of those setups where you're smelting, you will be able to double this and get 4 and have a balanced factory. So tip number 5, learn to math, learn how to balance, check your input, check your output, and make sure that your factory is balanced all throughout. Otherwise, you are going to start running into issues as your factory grows. Trust me, look there at the big factory in the back. It has taken quite a few hours rebuilding some of these because right at the start, I did not balance it out. So hopefully this helps you out in the long run. If you start right at the start, learning how to balance it out properly, looking at your inputs, looking at your outputs, it will save you hours and hours and hours of fixing it right at the end when you're building a way more complex system. But guys, that's it for these 5 tips. Hope to see you again. If you like what you saw, hit that like button. If you want to see more of that, hit the subscribe. Until the next time, this is Zombie Vega. Bye.